Well, hello everybody. I'm Mal Burns, and this is a welcome to Safari at OSCC 2022. What is Safari, you might ask? Well, the Hypergrid Safari is a weekly meetup where we have a little clubhouse and everybody joins together, and we go and visit one or two places for a couple of hours every week. Sometimes it's art, sometimes it's science, sometimes it's a social gig, whatever. Um, but we just get together as a community to go and look at everything. The hypergrid itself is a way of connecting all the grids that are use OpenSim software together. And jumping on a hyperjump, as it were, is as easy as just a teleport in somewhere like Second Life, which, of course, as a grid, is behind its own walled garden. So, this is, we've been here before. I think this is the third time we've done a proper Hypergrid Safari at conference. But we have one problem, and that is that you guys listening to me now are watching on stream on TVs. And we can't easily broadcast a Safari onto the TV screen because we're jumping here, there, and everywhere. Great fun it is, but not easily filmable. So what we've done is we've prepared a sort of 2-hour section, of which this is the beginning, to occupy you while we as avatars in World are actually on Safari. This year, because of the arts theme, we've actually got 4 destinations. People in World will be visiting them in their own order. They're left to choose. And we've conducted some advanced interviews with the hosts of those regions, and we got some film footage to show you of those regions too. So although it's not quite the same thing, it's a different experience, you will be actually being introduced to each of the stops on Safari. That will occupy about an hour of our airtime, and in the second half, we have a special kind of round table where we pull together all of the Safari regulars into a voice conference, and we sat around a table inside OS Grid, and we talked basically about what we like most about Safari, what it means to us, and you know, that's about it really. But interesting stuff because everybody, of course, has a different reason for being on Safari or liking it, so to speak. So, without further ado, I've got a feeling my 2-minute intro is probably about 20 minutes by now, so I'm going to jump over and jump into Safari at OSCC, and I'm going to hand over to Thursa Ember, who's going to be doing the first of the 4 interviews. That's where we're going to start, and then, as I say, we'll end with the round table. So I will see you later. I'll be back at the conference for a viewer panel right after this.
Hello, I'm Thursa Ember, and I'm here speaking to Karima Hoisan for the OpenSim Community Conference special Hypergrid Safari trip. And we're here on Kitely Grid, where Karima has been a member of the grid for, I believe, over a decade. Is that right, Karima?
Yes, 11 years actually. That's right.
Wow, so how did you get started in making things for virtual worlds?
Oh, thank you for coming, and thank you for doing this interview on AI Dreams and Art. We're very excited about hosting the conference, and I actually started in 2011 because I was invited by a friend of mine, a virtual builder, an architect, D.B. Bailey from Second Life, who was building here on Kitely, and Kitely was at that time just it was in beta. And so it was just, they were asking for people to come and try it out and see if they liked it. So it was free. And D.B. Bailey says, just take a world and do something. I said, well, I've never built a world, I don't know how. He said, well, you'll figure it out. And little by little, I started figuring it out, So I've been here since then figuring it out, and actually falling in love with it. I started to see that the possibilities, especially for what my passion was to begin with, which is poetry. I started seeing the possibilities of actually forming 3-dimensional worlds that I could kind of just let my poetry stream over it and show it, besides listening to it, you could see the poetry, so this is what really drew me here. And as I said, at first it was free, and then I made a really good relationship with Ilan Tochner, who's the CEO, and I never left, once it became, actually Kitely, and it was up and running. um, it was something that I stayed with until all these years. I'm still here, 11 years later, 21 years later. I've built 21 years, or 21 worlds, excuse me, over the last 11 years, and
That's
it's been an
wonderful.
amazing experience. Yeah, it really has. We started. I had a a really wonderful video partner who. Natasha Rand, who she's passed away since last year, but she and I made many films together, and we started building the sets on Kitely, on OpenSim, because of the possibilities of doing that, the many prims, and also by this time, I'm talking about 2013, 14, 15, OpenSim was ready to do that. We had,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
we had even mesh, had everything we could use. There was really no difference, to be honest, and we
that's
had
right.
the advantages of having, a whole entire world of 100, thousand prims and things like that. So
Now,
Natasha
we're
filmed
sitting right
beautiful.
here in AI Dreams, aren't we? The name of the region, this particular region that we're sitting in, and this has a special significance because you built this in tandem with your partner, didn't you, Dale Innes? Tell us a
Oh
little
yes.
bit about this build that everybody's going to be visiting
Oh
during the
yes.
safari.
Yes, of course. Well, yes, this build would not be here without Dale Lindis, because he started working with Midjourney, which is an AI art program. He started working in AI art programs like over in before the beginning of the year, actually in 2021, and he got very interested in it. And then, let's see, we're in November, at the end of the year already. He's been doing this for a long time, and he started showing me all of these amazing images that he was producing. And I was going, wait a second. I mean, this is, what are you going to do with these? And he said, oh, I don't know, just collect them. He has thousands and thousands of them. I said, wait. I think we need to show these to more people than just us. And, maybe we show them on Twitter or something. Let's build a world. I would love to curate, this art. And so we decided to divide it up into genres, and that's what you're seeing today. The collaboration between Dale's, art, and his and my idea of bringing it all together in one world. Mhm.
It's
That's it.
wonderful
That's
here.
AI.
And of course, for the
Thank you.
safari, people are only seeing a tiny little piece of what you've created here in Kitely. And even in this region, they won't be visiting the whole thing because it's a very shortened visit. So we encourage everybody to come back and see the other galleries that perhaps today they didn't get a chance to visit.
Oh, very
I love
much.
that the way you've decorated each of the different galleries has its own style. It's
Uh,
very cleverly done.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we decided that if everybody's going to have about 15 minutes, and we're going to try to do an automatic tour to help them make it easy, we want to show them like the surreal gallery, and then go from the surreal gallery to the goth gallery. That'll give them two different, you know, views of a few things that are on here. There's many, many more to see. So I hope people will come back, even
I'm
from the
sure they
conference.
will.
Yeah, I
And
love
on
that.
the expo region that we have over on the OpenSim Community Conference grid, they'll be able to find landmarks to all your regions. So just drop in and look at the poster that is marked Karima and Dale, and you'll find the links to all the different worlds that they've built. Because Dale is a great scripter, isn't he? Apart
Oh
from a
yeah,
bit of a designer of
that's how we
art.
started off. Yes, we started off. I had built four worlds on my own, and all of a sudden I was building a world, a water world, and I needed somebody to help script boats, and I don't have any scripting ability. I found Dale in Second Life and kind of dragged him to Kitely, and he never left. He's been here ever since. He has his own world also, and he loves it. And he's a wonderful scripter, and now also a builder. He doesn't talk much about that. He builds in prims, not in mesh, but he's a wonderful builder in prims, and of course, you know, a really first class scripter. So this
Wonderful.
world is something very different because he's the star. He's the star artist of this world. So you know,
Right.
it's a wonderful experience for him and for me, to help
Can I
in
ask
their
you one
lives.
last question before we
Mhm.
finish? I know this is a shorter interview because you're such an interesting lady. There'd be so much to talk about. But the hypergrid is really the focus of today's event. The idea of being able to jump from one world to another. Why do you think that's an important element in OpenSim?
Oh, I think it's just a marvelous element because before I kind of remembered, even though supposedly the hypergrid did exist since 2010, but not I didn't know about it, and we were all locked in our own little islands, and if we were like on grids, like I am on Kitely, we were all locked in our own little grids. We didn't have a chance to really see what everybody else was doing, and so this opened up what I call like virtual tourism. It opened up this possibility to not only see what people are doing, but collaborate with other people, go to their dances, go to their art exhibits, become part of it, You don't have to be on the same world, or the same grid in order to do things together. The hypergrid has opened up that possibility. I think it's just marvelous,
That's
really.
wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time today to talk
Oh,
to us.
my
I
pleasure.
know many people would be fascinated to come back and take that leap in the hypergrid and to get up there to see the other regions that you have here on Kitely. And it's been wonderful to be together with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Thirsa. Hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye now.
So, hello, I'm Thursday Ember for the OpenSim Community Conference, and this is the special safari visit in OpenSim. And I have with me here Nick Breen, and we're on his sim, which is on the grid called Pangea. It's a German grid, but it's specifically interested in art. And my first question for you, Nick, today is, how did you end up here in OpenSim?
Well, that's a long story, but I will say, first of all, welcome. Hello, everyone, to Pangea. I started in virtual worlds back in 2005, 2006, as a lot of us did in Second Life. Found that there was an art community there that was developing through George Feifel, who just recently passed out of the University of Mass. Looking through the virtual looking glass, I was participating with that in the MIT sponsored art sims, and then the University of Western Australia, JJ and the gang all sitting out in the most isolated city in the world, Perth. They had a very large presence of virtual world, and I was involved in that for a while. And it just limited as to size and what you could truly do with virtual art in a Second Life type of platform. And I moved over into OpenSims and discovered hypergridding, where you could go to different places. So I did that for several years. A few grids came and went, and I disappeared for 3 or 4 years, where I was off big time into my real life art. And then Pandemic World came, and I revisited Virtual World again, and it brought me back into OpenSims. And AMV was the grid I landed on. I had known people there. They were open to arts, a lot more of the performance arts than the style of art I do, but there was a world for that. And from that into OpenSims Art Festival, and the folks from Pangea saw what I was doing and invited me over to create art on a scale that has not been done in any virtual world before. We're sitting on a 4x4 VAR, and it's dedicated to one thing only. This is all a complete immersive form of art. So if you could imagine
That's
looking at, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's a wonderful sim, and this is certainly not the only region you have. I think you have somewhere else here on Pangea, and obviously you have the big sims over on AMV. I'm curious to know what is the theme of this sim that the people are visiting today during the special safari trip?
This is called Dreams of the Dead. It is the name of this art piece, which is a 3D immersive artscape that you take in. You can walk around and fly through, and there's actually a ride you can sit on, and it'll take you through pieces of the artscape itself. It's something that you need to go in and experience. The music's set for a certain style, chill beats, and you turn your sky to midnight, and you just get lost inside what this is. So just imagine seeing it as a picture and then be able to go inside of the picture and have it be 3 dimensional. So this is
It's
one.
wonderful. So do you use a lot of particles in this build? How do you make the effects?
There is 0 particles in this build. This is
Wow.
all done with standard prims and mesh prims, and it's retexturing them and applying scripts to create movement, scripts to create color, and scripts to take and flow textures across the mesh pieces that are out there. And it's me just designing them in such a way that they look good artistically, and they're far enough away from you, because there is a lot of movement stuff here, that you can be inside of it and not feel as if you're being pushed by the effects of the lights flashing or the colors changing or the revolving of prims.
Yeah, I love it. And it has a sort of a Mardi Gras, Day of the Dead feel. Is that something to do with your culture? Is that a culture that you're very fond of? How did you come up with the idea?
This was created right around the Day of the Dead holiday. I create quite fast. I would say that this whole structure was probably built in a 5-hour period over maybe 2 days of me just looking and thinking how I want what I did. So it goes up fast. So the holiday came, and and I was thinking about the Day of the Dead, and the concept hit me of what do the dead really dream of when they've passed on. And so there is some of that in this build. The lights up above are the souls rising up. You can see that some buildings push upwards with their flow, some push down, and it's a little darker an area below, whereas up high it's more bright and inviting.
Are all your sims based on sort of very quickly invented concepts? I believe over on AMV you have also many houses that you've designed as an architectural element as well as a more abstract element up in the sky.
Right, there is definitely a demarcation between what my land is about and what the art piece is. The art pieces started over in the AMV 8FX grid where I just decided to put one or two up, and it ended up I've got 60 different ones across 8FX on a grid all by itself, and I'm in on a sim all by itself on AMV called Immersive. I'm over on Odyssey Mind and Mementos grid, and now in Pangea. So they're across the way. So I'd probably have about 65 of these things, where the last two over here in this sim are 4x4 size. These are just monstrous. The next one
So you
coming
had a
up,
lot of looks like you've had a lot of support from the grid owners all over the place then, is that right?
with making sure that the sim's working properly. If anything starts looking wrong, I can always rely on Cliff over in AMV to have a little IM. You're running hot, look for some things, and I will. I'm a fanatic of recompiling all my scripts and shutting off anything that isn't working. I
So
just
that's
don't.
brilliant.
I just don't need it, as you discovered when you came over with the uh, Hypergrid Safari tour. After the place before was a little slower, and you came over and didn't have those issues. So yeah, I try
That's
to
right.
make it as easy as possible for individuals to come over here, and all they got to do is flick the sky to dark and go fly around or walk around, or use TP tours, or if I have a device you could sit on and it'll fly you around, use that.
Brilliant. So would you recommend to people from Second Life, do you think that the hypergrid aspect of OpenSim is something that helps artists? Would you recommend it to somebody who's maybe spent all their time in Second Life? Come
Well,
over here?
yes, I was a hardcore Second Life builder, and I would consider the premier contest for arts and architectural building by the University of Western Australia. There was nothing bigger. It'd be 250 people submitting on this contest back in the day. Second Life, you're limited. One, by the cost. Two, by the limitations of how large and what you can do. I've made things here that no one has ever seen before in virtual worlds. It's totally different. It's art on mega scale that can take and push through the digital divide into real life art installations, which I have done, where I've filmed these things and digitally displayed them inside of art galleries in Boston, where I curate for my regular photographic shows, where we do street photography and Boston architectural and abstract and all different things. It works just as well. People see videos or machinimas of this and their jaws drop, like, what in the world is this? So yes, Second Life's limited. If you're shooting as a machinima artist, you can set up things that'll take and flow through every single thing you need on the step of developing your film. It's here. It's here on a larger scale. It's here on a cheaper scale. The biggest thing I hear from Second Life artists and performers, oh, it's so different. What's different? You just use your suitcase. All you got to
Off
do
you
is
go.
you got to learn the locations, and you got to refriend people that you know here and get into the circle of individuals that were similar to what your circle of friends or circle of acquaintances or circle of performers or artists was in Second Life. There's enough of them throughout Open Sims that you can find who, what, when, and where, and you do the same things with your viewer. It's just that you can make it bigger, larger, and better here than you can in
That's
Second Life.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for explaining that to us, Nix.
Well, thank you. You're welcome. We done?
Hello, I'm Thurza Ember once again, and I'm talking to yet another artist who is one of our hosts for the very special safari trip on the OpenSim Community Conference event this year, 2022. And this time we are on Craft Grid, and we are here with Tosha Tyran. Hello, Tosha.
Hi.
And my first question for you, Tosha, is here up on the top of the tower here in Ivory City, is to ask you, how did you end up here? How did you end up in virtual worlds and eventually in OpenSim?
Okay. Well, I came first to a Second Life quite a few years ago, and I stayed there for some years, and it was fascinating, but it got to be a little boring. But then I met Lumiere Noir, who taught me to build, and he showed me a lot of things, and so I got a little more interested. And then by luck, and I don't know how I got this lucky, Liku Rao, the owner of Craft World, invited me to come to OpenSim. So I could convince Lumi to come with me, and we went, both of us, to OpenSim, and we were practically the four persons that the first residents of Craft World was Liku and his friend Tao. I don't remember her last name right now, and Lumi and I. So the four of us were the first in Craft, and it was really exciting. And I found right in the beginning OpenSim very, very exciting, because you could build so differently from what you could do in Second Life. First of all, that it was gratis and you did not have to pay for everything, which is a good thing. But also you could make things so much bigger and with so much more imagination than, at least that it felt to me, than in Second Life. So that's how I eventually ended up here in Craft. I changed around a little bit from time to time. I went to another sim and got residence there, but I always came back to Craft, and now I'm here for quite a few years, and I'm hooked to this place.
It's in your heart. It's in my heart too. I love Craft
Yes.
Grid. It's one of my favorites all the time. I know that on Craft and also back on Sanctuary Grid, when that used to exist, you have built so many different builds, so interesting. That I remember the Syrian build, and of course your Hopi village. It's a sort of a Native American village, and there's also the Taj Mahal. You've done so much over the years,
Yes.
but we're sitting in a very special place, and this build is called Ivory City. Is that correct? Can you
Yes,
tell
that's
us a bit
right.
about that?
Sure. Well, Lumi is Lumiere Noir. He was known in Ivory in Second Life for his building the Ivory Tower, and I think thousands of avatars have learned to build there with Prims. It was a one single building that was laid out so people could learn how to use, how to twist, and how to do things with Prims. And that, and he was also called the Great Prim Torturer. Lumi was, and so he came here. He was a great teacher as well, and he loved teaching. So he came here with the idea already to make another thing like the Ivory Tower, but he started making one of wood, but that was too little for him and too small. So eventually, we got a great big sim or various sims that at that time you could not get those huge sims. And he laid out the Ivory City, and his idea was to make a whole big city so you could learn, or the avatars could learn here to build with Prims. And I was from the beginning on working with him, and he built the big towers, and he made the layout, the basic layout, and I was doing the little huts all around. And then, unfortunately, Lumi died during the beginning of the work, and then I picked it up and I thought that I have to finish it or do it again, and I did that in Sanctuary, another world. Later on, Sanctuary disappeared with it complete work, so I didn't have anything left of it, and I started then here in Craft again with it practically from scratch. The idea was
Wow,
still,
that's I didn't know that. That's
yeah,
even more amazing, this build, than
yeah, it
good
was
Lord.
it was a really hard thing, but as you mentioned before, I built also the Taj Mahal, and I think that this Ivory City for me is like a Taj Mahal for Lumi. You know, it is
Yes,
in his memory, in his plans, and the layout I had and the lessons I had, and I changed the lessons a little bit and I modernized them a little bit, and I translated them with help of some friends into different languages. But the basic idea is his. But all the towers and all the things that you can see here are made from scratch by his idea, but by my plans, so to speak, my work.
that's beautiful. I have one more question for you. I know people are going to love coming to visit this place for their memories that they have from life back in Second Life. But of course, OpenSim has one thing that Second Life does not have, and that is the hypergrid element. And so my question to you, Tosha, is as an artist, but also as an OpenSim resident, how important do you think hypergridding is?
Well, I think it is really important because excuse me, the the different worlds here in hypergrid do have very often a very different perspective of doing the things. First of all, on some places you have different nationalities basically, even though it's always mixed with others, but you have the feeling of different nationalities, and also the themes sometimes are very different, and the way the people work and treat another is quite different. So I think it's really wonderful to have such a great such a great base, and also in some are themed art and some are themed schools and education, and so it's really great to travel around and to find all the different ideas, and of course get ideas for your own work and your own things that you're doing there too.
That's right. And it's no place like home, but it's lovely to get out and travel about and see what others are doing. So you have you have had a very long history here in craft, going back. It must be what 11 years or so. So you
Yeah.
can really speak from experience about hypergridding. And I just really like to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. And I'm sure the visitors are going to love visiting and looking at all the little instructions that you've set out, all the different information about the prints, but also to see the two NPCs of Lumi and Vince as well down below that greet
Mm.
people as they come. That's lovely.
Yeah. Well, you know, I normally work now with Blender, which means with Mesh, but my real heart belong to the prims still. You know, they are. It's such a grateful and wonderful way to work with them. You know, and as you can do it online, or you must do it online, you have maybe others talk to you while you're working, which is all something that you cannot do when you do in Mesh because you work alone on your PC, and you don't get these immediate ideas, you know. So prims are for me, yeah, my heart belong to
The
prims.
best. Thank you very much, Tosha. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Here I am again, Thursa Ember, interviewing some more wonderful artists who are working here in the hypergrid. This time we're on OS Grid and we're here with Ellen Tirazzo and Ernest Moncrief. Hello, guys.
Hi there. Hi, Teresa. Good to see you.
Good
And
morning.
Ellen
Thank
has a
you.
little problem with her voice, so as you can hear, she's not doing too good. But she's going to help us understand a little bit about the regions that they have here on OS Grid. And first of all, I'd just like to ask Ellen, how did you end up in virtual worlds?
I was teaching for my real life university, and we got a really big grant to set up universities in virtual world in Second Life. So I was one of the few people who was willing to try flying around a virtual world and being a professor. And I started in Second Life at my university region, teaching in an avatar form to students who were also in avatar forms. And I just sort of fell in love with Second Life and the beauty of the scenery and the ease of teleporting and changing clothes so quickly and all the beautiful things that people create. And so that's how I got involved in virtual worlds. And I don't know, I've just enjoyed being now in OS Grid. I'm still active in Second Life, but more active in OS Grid. And I love OS Grid because it's free and you can just build and upload images and make a copy of whatever you're doing. And it's just so much easier to build and create and be creative in OS Grid because of the lack of confines of the money situation.
That's true. How about you, Ernest? How did you end up here?
Well, it's a similar sort of story. I was doing a research project as well. I was working for a software company and we were looking into virtual learning technologies, VLEs, I think they were called, virtual learning environments, that was the word. And so that's how I sort of ended up starting to research what virtual worlds were, and at the time, Second Life. That didn't particularly go anywhere, but it did sort of inspire me to sort of get involved in that. And yeah, similar sort of thing, really. Second Life was expensive. I was spending lots of money, and I'm being very limited in the amount of land that we got and the amount of that it cost to get things. So started to investigate OpenSim and moved across to that, and loved the fact that you could set up your own servers and you could create your own unlimited amounts of lands, unlimited amount of resources, and also the sort of scavenger hunt of wandering around the grids looking for various bits and pieces that you could bring together to build your own environments. And
yeah, it's true, isn't it? It's fun. So speaking of building environments, tell me a little bit about this build that we're sitting in right now that the people will be visiting for the safari during the OpenSim Community Conference. What is this place?
Well, it started out. I started building the Tate Modern in London. Tate Modern was built by Giles Gilbert Scott over on the South Bank. People will know it for the Tate Modern and the Modern Art Museum that's in that now. Just down the river from the Tate is the Battersea Power Station, which is also was architected by Giles Gilbert Scott too. A similar sort of architecture there. And I started building that from scratch too. Built the building and then needed to put something inside it. And what better to put inside it than the work of Pink Floyd, as the Battersea Power Station had featured on the covers of the Animals, quite a well-known album cover. Everybody knows Battersea Power Station, probably globally, because of them being included on the Pink Floyd album cover. So that sort of inspired us to put Pink Floyd art in it, and then Ellen, I'll pass over to Ellen, had the idea of really turning some of that artwork into sort of more of a 3D shape there. Ellen?
Yes.
Yes.
So I've always had a huge respect for Ernest's ability to build and make really beautiful things from prims. And also, I really love this idea of an old building being repurposed. And so once he had built this Battersea, really beautiful copy of the actual building, we started thinking about putting Pink Floyd items in it. And as I was looking at the album covers, I just realized that they were such perfect art pieces. And so we started making these, I don't know, sort of vignettes that you could enter so that you would be inside the album cover. And so we looked at all the albums and all the covers and sort of thought of how we could bring those to life here inside this. I guess it's really a dance club, but it's also an art exhibit and a bit of a Pink Floyd history museum.
It's wonderful. It's a great mixture of things. And I know here amongst the Art Factory Sims, you have a lot of different things going on. There's a New Orleans one, the one that's about Japan. You have a bit of London, a little bit of Paris. You have so many different things happening. And the people visiting for this special trip for the Open Sim Community Conference, they won't get to see everything today, but hopefully they'll come back and take a look at the rest of what you have to offer, because there's so much going on here. My final question to you both, you're both artists, you're both builders, and you're both very interested, I know, in the community. Why do you think it's important that hypergridding exists, this possibility to go from one grid to another?
Well, I think, like you said, it's about community and it's about exploring and uniting people from all around the world and learning and just experiencing something different is what I see it as.
I agree with that. I think it's being inspired and to inspire. I think visiting the wonderful regions that people have created around OpenSim is wonderful to inspire, to get ideas, to share their thoughts and their visions. And art is about communication. It's about expressing emotions and thoughts and ideas, and it's lovely to share those. So inspiration, sharing ideas, and as Alan says, really importantly is the community aspect and bringing people together with shared interests.
And that's even though you're busy building so much of your time, obviously, but you think it's still important to take that time out to go and see what other people are doing, because it's easy to sort of get a tunnel vision, just be concentrating on your own art. But I know you encourage people to come in from all kinds of different grids and take up their little galleries over on the Art Factory Sim, which is a wonderful thing. So I'd like to thank you both for participating in this and for sharing your sim with us and for taking the time to talk to us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
2, 1.
Bingo.
Hello, everybody. This is the Safari Clubhouse where we're sitting with a bunch of Safari regulars who have come on many, many trips around the Hyperverse with us. And we would like now to introduce also Mal Burns, who is here, who can tell us a little bit about what this event is going to be talking about today.
Oh, what you think I know?
Not really.
Yeah, well, it's like we have a little dinner party of sorts here of a few of our Safari regulars, and this film we're recording this, and it's going out on the channel as the Open Sim Community Conference, which is basically the more formal get together. No dinner parties there. We'll be doing a public safari for 2 hours at the conference, and basically we'll have 4 stops, and people will hang on into 4 stops for 20 minutes or so. And we have interviews with the hosts and some footage of the regions we're visiting. But we thought to make it sort of more acute, we'd have this little round table, as it were, of regulars from Safari to give you guys at conference a better idea of what we like about it and what is happening here. Now, you've already just heard Thursday, who's the person who convenes the Safari, as it were, and has been doing so for however many years it is. How many is it, Thursday? It's a long time.
We did it for 4 years, and then I took a break, and now we've done it for another year, so 5 years altogether.
Right. And so, yeah, we just celebrated another year, and we broadcasted a connection with it each week as well on our Inworld Reviews show. So we recently had a roundup of seasons 1, 2, and 3 of this year, pending a new season coming up next year. But we have some separate interviews with the hosts of this safari, but I'll leave it to Thursday to tell us a bit more about that. But firstly, I'd just like to introduce the folks we've got here sitting around the non-existent table, so to speak. Firstly, a wonderful voice you're going to hear now from Cherry Mango. So welcome, Cherry. Right. Maybe now we're on air, she's not so keen. Bonsoir, Cherry. And we're joined. Dabishi is another of our members. Hi, Dabishi. I think everybody's got stage fright all of a sudden.
Oh no!
Hi, Kelso.
Hello, Mal.
Hi, Kelso.
I'm here online and eager to participate.
Wonderful. Okay, and hopefully we've got Nara here. Nara Nuke. Or Nara
Yes.
Malone, depending on.
Yeah.
Hi, Nara.
I'm here. Hello, Mel.
And we have Star Ravenhurst as well. Star, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
And also our wonderful cameraman, James Outloud, is here as well. So he's probably connected. Welcome, James.
Yeah, I'm here in some fashion.
Yep. You sound like you're here in fine fashion.
So can we start with Kelso? Because I think Kelso Kelso and Debbie Chi are kind of extraordinarily unique, because that's a husband and wife team, and not only do they have their own grid, but they also come on safari. And I think we all agree, really appreciate what they do, in not only in hosting us so many times, but also in coming around. And I'm just curious, as grid owners, how do they experience the safari, this big group of people wandering around the Hyperverse? What's it like for you, Kelso?
Certainly appreciate every week to make a tour with our friends and visit new locations, especially that Tirza is establishing the contact with the grid owners to make sure that what we will be visiting is worth seeing. Sometimes there are little problems, as we all know about hypergridding problems, and servers that are not able to resist a sudden burst of visitors. Nevertheless, it's fantastic to see what all others are doing. It's
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
true. Yeah,
it's
that's
not
true.
easy to know to discover what's going on the hypergrid. Even a site like OpenSim World, you know, if you want to do more than going to DJs and clubs, there's not much being announced on OpenSim World. So I've discovered a great many sims with the Safari.
That's cool. Now, how about you, Nara? Because you
I
again, you've had you have your own grid and you have a lot of projects going on. So why do you come on Safari? What's special about it for you?
Safari is such a huge source of inspiration for me, and I know some of our biggest projects, like the immersive edge story that we did with people that we met on Safari. You know, great creators like Cherry Manga, like Fred, Praline, Anya, a whole host of people that we met on Safari. And I sent them an email and said, "You want to do a project with us?" And the result was fabulous. So, and it's still true today that when I'm out on safari, I meet great creators and get inspired to try new things.
That's great. Also, Star has her own regions, and she's just moved house, haven't you, Star? You've moved to get another grid. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. Just a little over a month, however old I am today.
So why do you come along to the safari? What's going on for you? Did you know about the safari when we came to visit you? Had you already heard about it when we first came to see New Hope Grid? Where was it? Yes, that's where we came, isn't it?
Yeah, I knew about it. Kind of forgot about it though. I knew about it a few years ago. I saw something online about it and I'm like, that sounds like a fun thing to do, but I never did it. And then when you came to visit New Hope, that was a reminder that, oh, yeah, these people exist. Well, I knew because we had been anticipating it as a grid for months. And then when you showed up, I don't know, it just sounded like a fun thing to do. So the very next week, I started going, and I've been going ever since. And one reason is partly because of the community. I've made some really great friends. Thank you for the people that have become, friends. But also the inspiration. I mean, I build and I create, and that's what I do. That's what I'm focused on all the time. Um, but I think, like someone, Nara, I believe, said, I get inspired by other creators. I go see what other people are doing, and Safari forces me to do that. I go. Otherwise, I stay stuck on the grid building. And so I decided if I made a commitment that I would go every week, that would get me off my own grid, other than going shopping for stuff that I think I need, and meet people. Get to meet other people and see what other people are doing out there. And then I come back to my home grid and I'm inspired, I'm rejuvenated, and then I build like crazy. I usually have about 5
Let's
projects going at once because I
very,
bounce all over the place. And but
very,
that's how I get things done, and that's how I work.
very good. Well, we'll come back to you in a while. I just want to interrupt here because we're now
Sorry
joined
that
by
was so long.
yeah, it's free fall. It's dinner table, as I said. But we've also been joined now by Wizard Oz Chrome, muted at the moment, but welcome if you want to say hello, Wiz. And Ernest Moncrief, who is live on voice at the moment. So welcome, Ernest.
Hello, how are you all?
Yep, we hear you fine. Okay. Um, yeah, we're still waiting for Lucy, and Wiz needs to unmute if she wants to be in the voice chat. But yes, okay, back to you, Teresa.
No, I was just very thankful for all these people because I think Star hit the nail on the head there. But everybody here is a builder, really. I'm just looking around this room. We've got the fabulous Cherry Manga. I mean,
Oh,
everybody
and
knows
now
her work.
we've now got, and
All big names.
Now Lucy has joined us. Welcome,
That's
Lucy.
great. And we have Ernest who does the art factory together with Ellen. We have Star who, as she was just saying, big builder. She's got this huge concept of her novel, her fantasy novel that she's doing. We have Nara who does so much with OpenGL and with all her projects about storybooks, which is so fabulous. And we have, of course, Kelso and WC who do so much with their Canadian grid, and we've been there so many times and seen it. And every single one of those projects it absorbs a lot of your time. And the idea that you take time out to go and see what other people do is fabulous. But can I ask you, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you on Safari? I like to start with Nara here.
Well, I think in the early days where everywhere we went, we showed up bald and footless. And so my solution to that was carry extra shoes and hair with me to add when I would get to a grid. And then I finally realized that actually what was happening was I would be wearing 3 sets of hair. You know, I looked like Cousin It or something. And that wouldn't show up in my viewer, but that's the way it looked to everybody else. So I thought I looked great. And yeah, no.
That's really funny. I just would like to read out something that Cherry is not actually able to speak with us right now, but she just sent me a message, and if you don't mind, I'd just like to read it. She said, Safari is literally a glance on the world. Thurza knows how to find most interesting places that most wouldn't be able to visit without the Safari. It's a great way to meet others' creativity and mind, and it's a portal to diversity. I'm thankful that I discovered many gems. And then it's embarrassing to read it. She says, I love how Thursa manages to organize these events, always with a friendly and positive behavior. I name her Hypergrid Queen.
Yay.
It's just
Yay,
ridiculous.
yes, I'll go with that.
Hey, bravo.
Bravo.
Agree.
Very kind. But it is true. We do see many gems, don't we? And sometimes I've made a connection with the person and they've arranged to show us their grid. And when I get there, it just blows my mind, just like the rest of you, because I had no idea how fabulous it was going to be. So I'm right there with you, being amazed. I'm curious about Kelso and WG, if they've had any strange experiences, either with us coming to this region or when they've been out and about on safari. Has anything bad happened to you guys?
Recently, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, recently during the fall season, we got the visitors from Safari, and we were in the castle to take a group photo, and then we wanted to change and go to another room, and we weren't able to go through the door. So, and the door is there is no door, but we were not able to get through the arch. So someone told me, "Oh, that's because it's solid. It has to be put phantom." I did put it phantom. The entire castle become phantom, and we all
Yes.
fall
Oh,
3 stories high all together, and forget about the group photo.
The funniest thing there, because I'm no builder, but I know the feeling. You sort of sitting there, and you think you're making something phantom, and you are. It's the floor you're on.
Just everything.
Yeah. I recall
But it,
also on that in that castle we had another group visiting, the French group that was active with what's his name,
Vladimir.
Vlad. Yeah, and
great guy.
in this library in the castle we had a large number of seats. So the plan was to bring the group there to take a group picture. And as we were installing, our server just decided there was too many people at the same time on the sim, and we crashed. So we we had something like 15 or 20 people that all disappeared at once, and well,
I
it's
think
embarrassing.
we have a malediction with this castle.
Yeah.
How about James? I'm curious to know what James has to say for himself. Because he's a serial sitter.
Yeah,
So wherever we go.
the sitting is good. You know, my thing is if there's a sign that says "Don't go here," that's the first place I go. And I remember with the sauce region that we went to, where we got all those great fun attachments. The first thing I did was go through the tape that said "Don't enter here," and I went to the end.
It's a very English build, that is. It assumes that you will not do anything that you shouldn't do. And so that makes it much harder. Ernie, you've had the experience of having us come to your region, and of course you've been on safari several times yourself. What's the difference between being a tourist and being the host?
Oh gosh, I think it's that with being a host, it's all about timing, isn't it? I mean, I think it's making sure that everybody's getting the most out of it and get the timing right. And I think it's you either go too fast or you go too slow, and I think it's getting that balance right. And I think that takes a lot of practice and a lot of the more experience you get, the better you get at it. As a visitor, I suppose the one that always gets me, but it's always annoyed me, is when you get that lag and you start marching off to coordinate 00.
Yes.
Absolutely no control of it at all. You can see everybody behind you, and you're just marching off to the corner of the.
I think I just saw somebody in World arrive at the campfire, and they did exactly that. So I was trying to tell them, I am them, telling them where we were, and they went whoosh.
I'm marching over here, and then nobody's going to stop me.
So all of you have had the safari come and visit your Sims. Do you think it's a help to come on a group trip, to get the idea of what it's like to do a safari trip before you have the people come and descend upon your Sim? Was that a helpful experience for you? In the sense that people always ask me what will happen when the safari comes, and I said, well, the best way you can experience that is you come on safari and you can see what other people are doing wrong, and you can do it differently.
Yeah.
You think that's good advice? Do you learn from coming on safari how to do your own visit when we come and visit your Sims?
Well, we certainly learn that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly the case. I mean, I think a bit of preparation, sort of scripting out, sketching out what you want to talk about, what you want to point out and stuff, so that you don't end up with 40 people on your region and then think, oh, what do I do now? What's the first thing? Because otherwise you're just jumping from place to place. And I think Teresa, you're very good at the phrase. I don't know how globally recognised this phrase is of herding cats. Thank you. You're very good at herding cats, which is something you need to do.
How about you, Kelso?
We certainly learn a few things to avoid. Too much reading is not good. But certainly a certain amount of reading is good too. So we need to prepare what we want to say ahead of time, possibly in a note card that we dump in the short lines or short paragraphs in the chat so that people can read. But we have to be careful not to put too much, because then people just don't have time to read. Certainly, one thing that I appreciate when I go to places is when the owners of the region that we are visiting are showing us what they feel is important, what is worth to see on their sim, because just wandering around with the camera, as most people do from the landing point, you're missing most of the ambiance, the sounds. What makes a virtual world interesting to visit. Find sad that most of our visitors just don't move. They stay at the landing point for a few minutes and then vanish.
And
Yeah, that's true.
they probably don't even turn the sound on either.
That can happen. Cherry has a comment. She says, a safari is a local test. She says, most time I see that what I thought was obvious, like the way to walk, for example, was totally weird for the visitors. But unfortunately, it never helps me to make things simpler.
I, I'd, um, I'd actually like to intervene here with a sort of general question for everybody too, before we run out of time. This little chat, as it were, is premiering at the OSCC convention, of course, and we do find that a lot of people who turn up every year for the OSCC, they do know about OpenSim, otherwise they probably wouldn't even be able to get to the conference, but they're not actually that familiar with the hypergrid or indeed the act of hypergridding. So I'd like to know, as seasoned veterans, so to speak, here today, have you got a message for the guys watching on stream at the moment to you know, tell them not only the magic of hypergridding, but why it's so worthwhile to do it, rather than, as somebody just said, sit at the landing point. We need to encourage people to jump around and go and explore a lot more. So, any ideas, folks? Your own opinions. Start with Ernest, maybe.
I think a good point was made there about camming from the landing point. I mean, for me, virtual walls are something. I like to be in a situation where I'm not tempted to fly. I can't fly in real life. When I go visiting a art gallery or I go visiting somewhere, I walk around it, and things reveal themselves as you walk around corners, as you see a vista. And if you're just camming around, then you lose that magic of being able to suddenly come upon something. And I think you can be tempted to break the illusion by too easily sort of saying, okay, I'll just come around to see what's around the corner. Well, that sort of kills it a little bit for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, immersing
Well,
yourself.
given that many people don't hypergrid, probably don't know even how to use their camera. I don't think they have any problem on yours.
Yeah.
On your venue. How about the rest of you? Nara, Kelso, maybe.
I think Hypergrid Safari was a good tool for learning how to hypergrid, all the different ways that you could find to get to places on the hypergrid. Because when I first came here, I didn't really understand what that was. Like I was in OS Grid and I went to regions in OS Grid, but I didn't know how to get outside of it. And it's such a magical thing that are hopping from computer to computer around the world and experiencing all these different cultures. And to have a group like this where you can learn how to do that is a gift.
My
Yeah.
sense is
I
my
agree.
my
Start.
sense of the Beachy speaking. My sense is that hypergrading is really coming to the nearer to the notion of metaverse, and because you really access different grids, different coming from different place, approach in different places in different manner, and and really it works well today. I would say 8, 9 years ago, when there was a so-called 40,000 something bug, and we never know if we would be able to come home, it was something else. But today, it is very reliable. It's really fun, and it is opening you to different worlds, different ways, different culture, and for creators, it is a source of inspiration because it is a metaphor or of divergent thinking. It's just you go elsewhere and you look, and to me, hypergrid, the possibility to do hypergrid jump is um, pour into living in open sim.
Is there like the way you said that? It really is like the metaverse. As people are going around now, and they'll look at OpenSim and say, "Oh, that's 20 years old, like Second Life," But in reality, I think it is still an ideal template for what the metaverse should be. You know, so you go to places, you travel, you see the things just like you would in real life. Star, you were about to comment, I believe.
No.
Oh, I saw your
I'm
thing.
sorry. Well, what everyone else is saying, I feel the same way. You know, hypergridding is a way for us to meet other people from all over the planet. You know, because, well, there's people behind our avatars. And
That's so
Absolutely.
true. That's
We've
so
just
true.
been joined. We've just been joined by a wonderful creature. His name is Humble Tim. Welcome, Tim. Are you on voice? Yes, you are.
Yeah, hello. I'm not sure I've ever been called a wonderful creature before, but thank you.
Well, we're cameramen, you see. We're zooming
He's
in
the
on you.
lucky charm of the safari. If Humble Tim is with us, we never crash.
Oh,
Oh, you didn't know that, did you?
And
Well,
can I just give a quick shout out to Wizard Oz, who is
yeah,
right here. Wizzy is Italian, and she's not speaking because we're going pretty fast for her in English. But I just want to give a special thanks to her. Wizzy joined the safari in 2014. She was with me the second week. The first week it was Wizard Ginoid was with me, and the second week. Wizard Chrome joined me together with the lovely Fuchsia, who we all know so well.
Oh, yes.
And Wizzy has been stuck with the safari all these years, and she's just. Without her, I don't think it would have continued, because it was the inspiration of having those girls with me the first weeks. It seems like, yeah, you know, this is probably going to be a fun thing to do. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to her.
Absolutely. Ciao, Wizard Chrome. Yes, I can get one word of Italian in. It's ciao, along with cappuccino molto caldo, but that's another thing entirely. Yes, I rather hope that James on camera is actually coming in on Wiz, because I think really I tend to think of old comic books like Tank Girl and things like that from back in the day, and Wiz's avatar is just pure genius to me. It really is. It's got a personality all of its own, but it's sort of very realistic in a cartoony sense. And yeah, I'm trying to find it now on my camera. But anyway,
She's
So
not
another
wearing
question
the
I
one
had.
you're thinking of, Mal.
I
sorry.
had another question for the group. I had a question. The first time we came to your grids or your sims, I guess we've been to all of you except for Star, and we're coming to Star in the new year. Um, it's obviously a bit of a scary proposition when people come, but is this something you would encourage other people to do? Have the safari come and visit their sim? What's the upside and what's the downside of that? And maybe begin with Nara.
Yeah, I had to learn a lot about what would make, because you used to bring these huge groups. I haven't done it since you started back up again, but I had to make the grid better to be able to handle a large group like all of you showing up. And so, yes, I think it's a good thing. And when we were doing a big project and we needed to know if our project was going to crash, a lot of people coming in, Safari would come and do a load test for us. So, yeah, that's a great resource, and everybody should take advantage of it. And it helps people, you know, find what you're working on and be inspired by what you're doing, and put you in touch with what they're doing.
Was that the same for you, Ernest?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think yes, it was really great to have everybody over and to find out what people thought was great, what what really inspired people, because that sort of inspires you to do more of that, so to sort of focus where your efforts are. But yeah, creativity, like art, it's communication, isn't it? It's a way to communicate, and you can communicate through music, through poetry, but also through creativity and how you create your region in your sim. And communication's two-way, isn't it? You've got to have somebody to to listen and exchange ideas with.
Absolutely,
I
that's true.
think
Yeah.
I think further to that, something that sort of people miss somehow, and it's not just our hypergriding, of course, which extends across hundreds or thousands of grids, really, but you get it in other worlds too. I mean, as you go to a destination, it's like the real world. You might be going out to a concert, so you want the music, or you might be going to a landscape thing. So you might be going to a cliff and visiting a beach, going on by the seaside or something. But all these experiences, the art is out there. The sounds are out there, not just the music, but the ambient sounds that people put into their builds. And all of this, I mean, it is communication. And, even a static piece of art that you might never see in the real world does communicate something to you, just as art in the real world does. So the point that is that, it is about, presence and communication and being in a place and time, as it were, while you
That's
travel
true.
around. And just like the real world, there is no real difference except that it's probably easier to hypergrid than it is to get out your front door. But
That's true.
that's a personal
Well, it
opinion.
depends on the it depends on how the internet is working that day, doesn't it? What
This
about
is
you,
true.
Kelson DeBici? What about you? Would you encourage people because you're in Canada and you speak English obviously perfectly well, but you're also French language people. Do you think it's a good idea for people to show their Sims to a group like us of crazy English speaking crazy people?
Yeah,
Definitely.
I find that it is really fun to have visitors. And we learn a lot through that of mistakes not to do or improve them the next time. But really, if you create something and you have no visitors, it's like crying alone in the forest and nobody hear you, you know. So it's an opportunity to show, and it is an opportunity to learn from other and have reactions, and an opportunity to improve every time. But if people are afraid of that, why not considering this community of old timer, hypergrader, Safari people? Why not considering them as a source of uh, learning or talking about their experience, maybe going to their place before Safari and giving them some hint? Because we all have received visitors at home. We all a lot of time go to Safari visit, and I think we could consider ourselves as a group of resourceful people to other who would like to showcase but are not so sure if they can.
That's
Yeah.
true. What about you,
Certainly,
Humble Tim? Oh, sorry, Kelso, go ahead.
well, there's a trick that we've learned. We mentioned earlier the fact that at one point we had a group of French people preparing to take a group picture, and the sim crashed. Well, we have a software that watches the resources consumption on the sim and restart the sim automatically when the load is a bit too high. Well, now what we do just before the group arrives, we disable this watchdog, and we never had any problems since. Of course, you want this to run normally, but our server was able to support a heavy load for an hour or two, and we never had any problems. But that's a hint I would give to people when they receive visitors, is to make sure that uh, there's not something that will make your sim crash
Yeah.
automatically.
Well,
Yeah.
we're running out of time now, but I want to ask Tim what he thinks about safaring. But while he's thinking about that, I'd like to ask each one of you, can you think of a place that you've been to on safari that has stuck in your memory all these years? And I'll give you a moment to think about it. Maybe Tim could tell us why he thinks going on the safari is a good idea for the Hyperverse and for OpenSim in general.
Sure, I'll be put on the spot. Let me think. I well, one of I think that sometimes in the challenge of like virtual worlds and open metaverse, sometimes like the human to human connection kind of gets pushed to the side a bit. But on Safari, it's almost like celebrating that connection by way of storytelling and experiencing not just the results, but the human details around the results. And to me, that's truly intriguing. And one of my favorite experiences that I still go to it because I have a couple screenshots of the the gecko avatar. Um, Going not on just one vehicle, a banana boat of some sort, but then riding through the air on this dandelion seed,
Yeah.
and then ending up. I've been on several safaris. I think this is the one I think where we ended up in the maple syrup presentation, and it was
Yeah.
so surreal and interesting, um, and I don't know anywhere else yet where you can find that.
That's
No,
true.
it's
So let's go around. What's your favorite place that you've been to?
I love the way Templeton sort of emphasized, it's people, the people first and foremost come up front, with
That's
Safari.
true. So I've got one from Cherry Mag. She's going to be first to say which place that she likes. She said it's Mobius Grid, which is perfection concerning builds, scripts, and general atmosphere. And then she also likes N Grid, where Alpha has her shapeshifter build. And she says Alpha's incredible talent. And I have to agree with her. I really love that too. So anybody else like to say what their favorite place is? Maybe we can start with Star. What have you seen that you loved?
All of them.
No favorites
I,
here.
well, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And I haven't been to that many. um, every build, every grid brings something unique to the table, and I appreciate, I don't know, everybody's work. So I can't
How
really
about
pick
you,
one.
Nara? Nara, anything stand out from you from the places that you've been?
Yeah, I think a few years back we went to the Outworlds grid when they first opened up the Dragons region.
Oh,
It was
yes.
probably one of the evening ones, and it was that human connection and the beauty of the region that we were all on these flying dragons in the moonlight. And, to be surrounded by my friends and flying on dragons in the moonlight was just incredible. So that is the one that stands out most from everything that we've done.
I have a message from Wizzy, and she says the safari was the best group and socializing experience in my entire existence in virtual worlds. She says, thanks to Safari, I visited in good company hundreds of places. I gave vent to my great passion for photos in virtual worlds and saw a sea of art and danced in almost all of them. So what about you, Ernest? You've been to a bunch of places. Any thoughts?
Gosh. I mean, I like Nuna. I think that's a lovely
Oh, gosh,
gallery.
yeah.
That's really nice. It's a bit like when I do art myself. It's always the last one that I've done that is the one that I really loved going to the Falling Water last week. I thought that was brilliant. But what I would plug is to use the Safari blog spot, because if you didn't get to them, then it's fantastically documented the safaris you've done, and it's a fantastic resource for inspiring you to find places now that are still there to go and visit that are in the blog spot.
That's true. What about you, Dabichi? Any favorite place?
I would say I'm always triggered by creation of games that are not permanent, but it's part of the attraction as well. But um, I like to build, but I have not a real sense of how to create a fun game. And this is what I find with Ange and Nanny. They have a mind of gamers, and I just love it. And the last one was very fun because we were landing on a wreck, on a ship that a wreckage, and the ship was totally how do you say that, incline, decline, or whatever, that you were not straight horizontal or vertical, but you were just, oh boy, what's the word for that, penché in French, and you got the real feeling of being on a on horizontal floor like you would be in your life, and your first reflex is trying to find a place to sit because it is very uncomfortable. So it's really funny. And it's not for necessarily for what you win. It's more the concept and the imagery and the imagination around that.
Absolutely.
And he is creating that. It's free. We see that a couple of days, and then we just wish that the next one is going to come soon. It's fun.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Kelso, we're running out of time. Can you tell us one yourself, Kelso?
Well, over the years, I've been impressed by Cherry Manga's constructions. And lately, we visited, I think the name is Nick's Breen, was
Oh,
also an art installation, very, very impressive.
excellent. What about you, Mal? What's been your favorite?
Oh, I can't possibly say.
Too
Good.
many, huh?
But no, actually, thematically, right, it's not so much a favorite, but we used to have sites like Hyperica, we used to have Sanctuary, and there are still a couple of grids around that have these kind of like virtual airports. And
Yes.
I must say, I love looking around there because you see the hypergates too. And
Hmm.
sometimes they show you a snapshot of the destination before you walk through them. And sitting or standing in a place like that, looking around, really gives you an impression of how vast the hypergrid
True.
actually is. All these places, and you yourself, there's in various regions around, have got these mini gateways too. It's just to stand in front of a gateway that offers you all that opportunity and destination is wonderful.
Beautiful. What
Yeah.
about you, James, very quickly?
Yeah, one that stands in my mind forever, and was an early Safari tour, but Ignis Fatuus is
Oh,
probably
yes.
one of my favorite
Yeah.
grids. And I remember a place we went to there was an archive of a builder who kind of invented this iteration of moving something slowly around a circle to create these swirling builds, and yeah, that would be my favorite.
Well, thank you all so very much for being here, and I hope we've inspired people all over OpenSim to open their minds to the idea of hypergridding and jumping and going to see other people's builds. It's been a joy to speak with you all. Thank you.